And tonight, we're talking about The Last Temptation of Christ from 1988, directed by Martin Scorsese. Jesus, a humble Judean carpenter, beginning to see that he is the Son of God, is drawn into revolutionary action against the Roman occupiers by Judas, despite his protestations that love, not violence, is the path to salvation. The burden of being the savior of mankind torments Jesus throughout his life, leading him to doubt. As he is put to death on the cross, Jesus is tempted by visions of an ordinary life married to Mary Magdalene. So, RJ, are you familiar with Jesus?
Yeah, I know a guy downtown. He's a mechanic. He is of Latin descent, and he's a really nice gentleman.
Yeah.
No, I think it's been brought up once or twice. I am of my upbringing was one of Catholic origins, so I attended the Catholic schools and the Catholic churches. So I guess you could say that this episode is where I might come out. I was gonna say come to shine, but I was like, wait, that's not what it is. And then I was like, out to shine. Yeah, I know Jesus.
Yeah, you know that dude.
I know that dude. Do you know that dude? You heathen atheist.
I'm aware of Jesus.
Yeah.
So I've seen this movie a few times. I like that Martin Scorsese.
Right.
This so far is his only movie, I think, in the actual Criterion Collection. I think.
Yeah.
He's like done like there's like now like the Martin Scorsese Presents stuff. Like he's like working behind the scenes. He's a big film conservationist, and he's like. If you've ever watched an interview with him, like him just talking about movies, he's like insane. Like he just prattles off information that you're like, what the fuck is wrong with him? That I'm like, why can't I be wrong like he is? Where like you can just prattle off stuff. You're like, wow, I wish I knew as much as he did. But I guess he grew up in an era where like you didn't have a constant like barrage of like new content to absorb every single second. Like you went to a movie. It's like when we were talking about Truffaut and him going to like the movies like every single day and watching 39 Steps every day for like weeks, and like you really get to know it was Lady Vanishes. You just get to know movies like inside and out, and like I don't know, you probably actually learn about making movies way more by watching stuff that way. So yeah, anyway, Marty's awesome. I love his movies. He's not, I mean, he's no Toby Hooper.
Yeah.
No, I made a list of like, I was like, I want to make a Scorsese ranked list, and I was just like throwing it together. I'm like, fuck, this guy's got so many good movies. Like, it's nuts.
Fucking right, man.
Yeah.
And that Joker origin movie that he's doing, that's probably going to be the best one ever.
Oh, best one ever. Well, and The Irishman for Netflix, come on.
With the CGI de-aged Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci
now you're just lying to me. Please, you're lying to me.
Did you not hear that?
No.
You know how they do that in all the Marvel movies where they de-age? Yeah, that's what he's doing.
And they have so much more money to do it on those movies too, and it still doesn't look great. And now they're going to do it with like Netflix money. Oh, Jesus.
It's I don't know, man.
Yeah,
but I like Martin.
Yeah, actually, the one thing I don't like about Marty is when he does CGI. That I love that Silence movie is awesome, but man, there's like some questionable CGI ships.
That's what I should have watched this week.
Yeah, geek. That movie that movie fits in like perfectly with this too, because it's another like book from the 70s.
I forgot that movie existed because the world forgot when it came out. Remember?
Yeah, it fell out of the monoculture's mind.
Yeah, I forgot.
Anyway. So, Last Temptation of Christ is a movie I've seen before. It was always one of those weird movies that, like, it's like, ugh, Jesus. I don't want to watch no movies about Jesus.
Come on.
But Marty's like big time. He's I'm not sure where he is now with Catholicism, but he's a big time Catholic guilt guy. Apparently, before he became a filmmaker, he was thinking about taking up the collar. He was going to be a priest, which actually makes a lot of sense with this movie because I think that this movie does like the best job like presenting the story of Jesus that I've ever come across. So, sucks to the Bible.
Well, he's just a small part of that, anyways.
Yeah. So, anyway, so a little back history of this film itself. So Marty, he wanted to make a film version of Jesus' life since he was a kid. That's what he wanted to do. When he was going to the movies, checking out those King Vidor movies and all the other old shit that he'd watch, he was like, I want to make a movie about Jesus. But because all the other ones that he's seeing, these King of Kings and stuff like that,
they're
the
just
greatest
old
story ever
movies.
told. They're just like, yeah, they're
Yep.
they're kind of cool. They're like big time Hollywood movies. They're like slick. I mean, hey, I love that Ten Commandments movie, and I don't.
Yep.
That movie's awesome. Or at least last time I watched it, it was pretty awesome. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so while directing his first like feature studio movie, Boxcar Bertha, which I watched this week, and that movie's nothing special. His star, Barbara Hershey, who is in Last Temptation playing Mary Magdalene, she gave the actress gave him a copy of the book that this is based on.
The Bible?
This movie,
Oh,
Last Temptation, Kaczynski's novel. He optioned it back in the 70s, and he gave it to old Paul Schrader to adapt.
Nice.
He was originally going to follow up The King of Comedy, starring Jerry Lewis. But apparently, he wanted $14 million, and he was going to shoot on location in Israel. And I guess at the time, Aidan Quinn was going to play Jesus. Sting was going to be playing Pontius Pilate.
Nice.
And Vanity as Mary Magdalene, which is interesting. Vanity was like, her career is really nuts. Like where she kind of got to, considering.
I don't even know who this Vanity is. I'm gonna look it up while you talk.
Okay, well, she was Prince's like pet project. She was like in like Purple Rain, and then she showed up in a bunch of other action movies, like in like shit. Like she's like not great. She's just like this broad. And anyway,
I know she was in a movie once.
Yeah, she was in a handful.
Yeah,
of movies.
okay.
I've actually seen like 5 or 6 movies with her inadvertently. But anyway, there was some protest to this movie existing.
I'm sure
that Paramount get, and so they dropped this. They went, nah, fuck that. We're not going to bother with this business. And so then Marty went After Hours instead. But then Universal Studios picked it up. And so instead of getting that $14 million shooting in Israel, he got 58 days and $7 million to do it. I got a fellow by Jay Cox. He revised the Schrader script, though he doesn't get acknowledged on the actual like credit title. I don't believe it's just Paul Schrader. Aidan Quinn dropped out as Jesus. Clearly, Sting is not in the movie. And so that went to another musician that you might have heard of.
My man.
Principal photography was October 1987. It was shot in Morocco. A first for Scorsese. What a surprise. And it was difficult, compounded by a hurried schedule. Marty said at the time, we worked in a state of emergency. Scenes had to be improvised and worked out on the set with little deliberation, leading Scorsese to develop a minimalist aesthetic for the film. Shooting wrapped by December 25th, 1987. Whoa. It's kind of like it's like making a movie about Jesus, or we're talking about a movie about Jesus on my birthday.
So what kind of connection are you trying to draw here?
I don't know.
What's your end game?
We're both J's.
JC?
J's.
JD.
And guess what? A day ago, I was also 33 years old.
Oh my! So you've outlived our boy JC.
Yeah, I did one better. I posted.
I'll take care of that.
I posted that list of notable people who died at the age of 34. I've got some tall orders ahead of me. Jeffrey Dahmer is one of them.
Ooh, yeah.
And I mean, if I died today, I would not make the notable list. So I got to get cracking here. I don't think they'll be putting co-host of the Criterion Creeps podcast on the notable deaths at age 34 list.
I don't really like your tone. I feel like you're not really promoting the show as much as you should be.
Yeah.
Be proud in what we've accomplished, man. We have like three or four pretty consistent listeners.
Yeah, damn right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my feelings on this movie. I think this movie is awesome. I fucking love it. It's like a movie that I like. I think it's the closest thing that I've come across that like I mean, obviously, it humanizes Jesus. It makes Jesus a like approachable human being who with actual struggles. And like Willem Dafoe is like fantastic. It's like probably the best thing I've seen him in, besides Fishing with John, playing himself. I say as a performance.
By
goes,
the way,
oh yeah, John Lurie.
John Lurie's in this.
Yeah, we got.
I didn't know if you noticed.
I saw him and went RJ will like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Willem Dafoe, incredible performance. Actually, all the performances in this are like pretty good. Harvey Keitel as Harvey Judas,
red-haired,
just weird crimped, like curled, permed hair. It's very funny. But anyway, yeah, there's people that I remember like. I've tried people making comments like, "Oh, what's with the accents? This is stupid." And it's just like, I have no issues with that whatsoever. I mean, there's an extreme form of like everyone's got to speak ancient Aramaic now. There's that solution. But we'll get there. But yeah, so this movie, I remember the last time I watched it. It's been a while, like probably 10 years almost. I remember watching it on like Easter Sunday or something like that, and I remember being like, "Wow, this movie's so great! Like, it does like it's the best presentation of the story I've come across." It's like if I were like susceptible to becoming a believer and having faith, this is the movie that would do it. So, congrats, Marty. But it's not happening.
But Jared, it's the greatest story ever told.
Yeah, it sure is. Anyway, we'll talk about this stuff. I think this will be good. Sure. I think this will be good. RJ, this is the first time you ever watched this movie.
So kind of. Being from a Catholic school, a lot of the time during like when you would get close to like Christmas and Easter, especially in like elementary schools, they would show you Christian movies like this. No. Like this one's a little.
I don't think
maybe not for like.
I don't know if they were popping this one in. Were they?
I think in junior high. Yeah, we were showing this one.
Whoa.
No, they don't see. That's the thing. Like, man, people who aren't there don't really realize like Catholic schools are pretty upfront with this shit because they want you to feel bad about what happened. It's that Catholic guilt you were talking about.
Like Mel Gibson's got.
Yeah, they might show you The Passion in like grade 12, but I think it's fallen out of fashion now. But no, yeah, like so this movie and then a lot of the other ones too, because I was looking at, I knew I could get one in this week, and I went with The Passion for my man Mel. Well, yeah. But I was looking at like all the other movies that had like Jesus as kind of like the main focus of the movie.
Right.
And just looking at the posters, I was like, man, I've seen these movies. And there was movies I haven't thought about in probably 20 years. But there were a few like Jesus of Nazareth. And we were talking, there was one or two other ones.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
Jesus Christ Superstar. Yeah. That one. Lots of those. Like
there's a few.
There's a few.
They still make them.
Yeah, they still make them. But just looking at the poster, I was like, oh, man. I was like, I recognize that. And I think this is one of the ones, too, where I've seen it as a little kid for sure. If not in school, it was probably playing on TV during Easter or something like that. And I probably caught it there. But I recognize parts of it. I just I've never seen it as like
an adult.
Yeah. So I didn't count it as a rewatch because I don't play like that.
Right.
And you know me.
I'm just surprised that they would have popped this in Catholic school, considering its like status as being blasphemous by some.
You'd be surprised how progressive some schools are.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised that it got snuck through. But so anyway, what do you think of this movie? Being boning up on your Christ.
I like this movie, man. I think it really it's like what you said. It really humanizes him and kind of shows like this pull between like all he wants is like to be a normal person, which I think people can identify with because we're all like celebrities that are like always in the paparazzi, and it's like sometimes you just want to be a normal dude. But no, one thing I really liked is I think his relationship with like Judas is so good in this. They portray it so well because
Judas is like the ultimate bad guy. Like that guy, like in the canon, like he is like in like Dante's Inferno and stuff like that. He is down there with the devil, like just getting like fucking dipped in lead and whatever or silver, right? Like that's his like fate. Like he is the worst person ever.
Which is usually how he's portrayed too. Like he's usually like you don't like him, but for some reason, like when I was watching this, you kind of root for Judas. You're like, you see him interacting with Jesus, and they're like actually friends, and you're like, well, they would be friends because he was one of like the 12 apostles, right? So you see them interacting. It's like, well, that makes sense, and I feel I think he does a really good job of showing where Judas is really conflicted about it, where it's like he feels that it's something that he has to do, and it's also Jesus is like, well, you have to do this, which is how it gets presented as well. But a lot of people, they can't have it where it's like the good guy is also the bad guy. It's like you need a clear guy who you don't want, like, and it's like, well, Judas is the guy because he was the one who gave him up.
I feel like that goes against like thousands of years though of the narrative of what
exactly
right, and so it's like this movie is just like, okay, so yeah, you have the Judas character who in this is just like 10 times more interesting the way they're handled. Like he's like a fucking killer and he's breaking people's necks, fucking people up, and like he's like, I'm gonna kill you, Jesus, if you go off the path, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And it's like by the end he doesn't want him to kill him anymore, even though he's gone off the path. But now it's like, well, no, you have to. That's God's plan for you. And like God's will is my will, and that's going to be what you do. And it's like, and you're going to be like the villain of the story, but like it's what has to happen. You have to do this. You have to pull the trigger on it. Great. And I mean, the other thing that like, and it's right off the bat with this movie too, is the most like interesting things is like and it's nicely alliterative, Christ the collaborating carpenter. Like the idea that he is the one, as a carpenter, he is building these crucifixes which are killing fellow Jews in occupied Palestine. I guess it was Palestine at the time. It's like, that's like so fucking smart. That's like, wow, like taking material that like, man, you look at it from a distance and like you have no context to this. None of it makes any sense. This movie like goes in there and it's like, hey, we're going to do a contemporary story with like actors that you know that are like top line actors, and we're going to like flesh this story out in a way that like we're not going to hold anything sacred. We're going to like, because I mean, a lot of it comes down to the original book too, which I would be really curious to read just to see how much is screenplay and how much is the novel. But I mean, the book was also like hugely controversial as well. It's
I'm sure.
Oh yeah. So I mean, people hated the book, and they really are going to hate the movie because the movie's going to be seen by more people than people who are going to read that book, which was written 1955. Anyway, so yeah, that stuff is great. I love, like, in the movie again, all this stuff is the beginning, like this idea of seizures that he's being attacked with. It's like, yeah, like in 33 AD, people wouldn't know like what, like, seizures were like possessed by the devil, and you're hearing voices in your head while you're being told, talked to by devils, and it's like angels or devils. But he's like, some guy's talking, like, God's talking to me, and it's like, yeah, that would be a terrifying thing, because it feels like an eagle's talons are going into the base of your neck, and you're having attacks, and you don't know what it is, and a voice is telling you, you're my son. It's like, oh, that's
spiritual, man.
Yeah. That's but it's fascinating because it's like it's played like in this sort of still nebulous, like kind of ambivalent way, like where like I'm pretty sure like Martin Scorsese is invested in the story of Jesus, like as it, like, you know, he is the Son of God, but it's played in this way that like it's not too hands-on.
Yeah, but it's like you said, he plays him as a human too. Like, Jesus is cold as ice in this fucking movie. Like when he passes Mary and he's like, I have no mother, I have a father, and it's just like, yeah, I could see someone when you're, it's like Justin Bieber thing. It's like when you're told you're the best forever, you eventually like believe it. Or not Bieber, like Will Smith's kids.
Yeah, that's
a better example. When you're told like you're so great all the time, even if it's in your own head, then like you kind of build up on that hype. But no, I really like this because it does show a different side where he's like not perfect, and he kind of like, he has emotional he reacts emotionally to things, which in a lot of cases he doesn't. Like a lot of the portrayals of him, because he's usually this very centered, like thought. Yeah, like kind of like thoughtful person. Like it'd be like when the stoning of Mary Magdalene, where he's just like super calm about it, and he's like, chill out, guys. But then maybe in real life, he would just be like, what are you doing? Cut it out. And he'd be like really mad about it, you know? Because I don't know.
Mr. Stone Her to Death guy, he was played by Irvin Kershner, the director of Empire Strikes Back.
and that movie, Eyes of Laura Mars?
Yes, or
Something like that.
yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a cool dude.
No.
No, yeah, I like this movie because it does show a different side of it, which is nice because it's like I was saying, a lot of the time you just get the kind of the same garb over and over again, which is fine too. Yep. But no, yeah, I think they showed us this in school. Us this in school. They showed you lots of movies, like anything that was like loosely tied to religion, you would get shown. Like I bet they show Silence in the Catholic schools now.
Yeah, that's on Blu-ray now.
Yeah, they're a lot more open to this stuff than people would think.
Right.
Maybe like the boarding schools where like they wear the uniforms and stuff like that, and it's taught by nuns. Those ones are probably a little bit more strict, but
a little more orthodox.
Yeah. No, yeah. I like this movie. I think it's really good. Willem Dafoe's super good. Martin, of course, is awesome. There's a great like symmetry in this movie where whatever is like in frame is really like mirrored really well. Like everything is. Do you know what I mean by that?
Like composition?
It's it's very balanced in the symmetry that he shows.
That's pretty.
I don't know. I noticed that.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. I was gonna say my next note is like the musical score in this movie is sweet. Mm-hmm. That Peter Gabriel.
yeah, it is. It's really good in this one.
Yeah. He apparently won a Grammy in 1990 for it for
nice.
Best New Age Album.
Ooh.
Well, apparently it was like he won a Golden Globe Award nomination for the best original score for the movie, but the following year or a couple years later, he released a CD called Passion, and that actually won the award. Yeah,
that's cool.
The film score from Wikipedia claims itself helped to popularize world music, which I guess is like not a great thing.
Yeah. I guess. But no, I just remembered something I wanted to say too, where one of the things that I think people probably like about this movie is that it is a little bit different of an interpretation than the normal ones. But a lot of the stuff that's there, like that's just Bible stuff, like like being tempted by the devil, like when he's in the circle.
Yep.
And he gets tempted like 3 times, and then later again on the cross. Like it's just how the story goes, man. It was just whoever wrote this book was like, I wonder if you explored that a little bit more, what it would be like.
Well, yeah, the whole idea of like the last temptation, like that's like, I mean, that's the movie title. Like it's like all right there. And by the time you get to that point, I've like forgotten what the title of the movie was, and I'm just like caught up in the story, and then it comes down to like, oh right, his last temptation, which is like the last like fifth of the movie, is just a dream sequence in the style of like It's a Wonderful Life.
It's done well. It's done so well though, I think.
Oh, it's again, it's brilliant. Like it underlines like the fact that no, you like if you're otherwise you're just a philosopher. Like this is part of the story that has to happen. But again, it also kind of like complicates things for people who have to think, oh no, he was a god. It's like, well, it all depends on your interpretation of that, because there's like I mean, I'm a little rusty on this stuff because as an avowed atheist, RJ, I have done my research, and I've actually tried to like read a lot about this, particularly in my early 20s. Some of my close friends will recall that I collected a lot of like Jesus memorabilia because I found the like marketing and like strange trinkets that emerged around him, like lenticular prints and like just like various religions had their like kind of iconic images of him. I love that stuff, and I just collected it because you could find it anywhere around here, just in value villages and thrift shops. They're just constantly like some new weird novelty. So I've done my reading on this stuff. I've read a lot of this belief system, so I believe there's like a thing though about like the divinity of Jesus and like how much of him is what, and this movie obviously goes with the idea that he was like a human. Like he had to live as a human, regardless of his divinity, which I guess comes in the form of his magic tricks or sorcery or whatever.
Which is the way it's supposed to be interpreted too. Like people get, like I won't get on a big soapbox here or like a big pedestal about stuff. Like people misinterpret a lot about what this is, and that's where a lot of the problems in any kind of big organized mass religion, that's where the problems stem from, is when people misinterpret like how things are supposed to be held. But like the Bible itself, like even the Pope who's in right now, who's a super cool dude, he's just like, yeah, you're not supposed to take a lot of this stuff literally, you guys. It's like it's yeah, like
Boo.
and yeah, like people like cause he like the new Pope is like I said, super progressive and like he's very like open about this shit and he's like, yeah, you're not supposed to believe the Noah's Ark story. He's like, that's not the point of it. The point is like the lesson that they're telling, right? And like I think it's the same with the Jesus stuff where it's you're not supposed to like take it as he is this like completely bulletproof like godly saint. Like he would just be a guy
Mhm.
and that's you know what I don't know why like there probably is one thing out there but a lot of people there is the lost years of the Bible,
Right.
which is like when he's a baby until he's like 30,
Yeah.
and then he goes out preaching. Like that's what they should do, man. You explore that a little bit, where he's like he is a human and he's like trying to do stuff, but
Right.
he can't.
Well, there's like this relationship that he had with Mary Magdalene and stuff like that, and like
Yeah.
it's like no, I can't, and it's like well, that's gonna be
Hmm.
difficult because yeah, my next note was yeah, being a first century sex worker would suck.
Yeah.
Not a good time, not a good
Yeah.
time.
Not the best career. Yeah.
Well, but it probably was one of the few career opportunities available to you.
Huh? Yeah,
And
because you get forced into it, and then one day they'll be like, you know what, we don't like this. We're gonna stone you.
yep.
Yeah, because you suck. We hate you, even though we're all customers.
Yeah, all these
Hmm.
foreigners come by, and you really help prop up the economy with all this money you're bringing in.
Hmm.
But you know what? The mood has struck us. We need a scapegoat. We need to get you out of the way. We don't know what the Old Testament says.
Those pesky Jews. Am I right?
All right,
Oh,
Mel.
always looking for scapegoats. I'll talk
well,
about that later. But
well,
holy shit.
Mad Mel. Slow
Yeah.
down there.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So yeah, then we get like I don't know, just points of this movie. People should just watch it because it's fantastic.
Hmm.
We get the stream of I guess guest stars John Lurie,
Yep.
playing John the Baptist. It's
Hmm.
Andrew, or sorry, Andre from the film My Dinner with Andre, which we will
Hmm.
cover one day. And then yeah, that David Bowie guy, he
Yeah.
shows up here as Pontius Pilate,
Yeah.
with a horse. It's one of those like
Mhm.
handful of David Bowie film roles that's around. Harry Dean Stanton,
Yeah.
one of our faves, playing also a fucking murderer.
Hmm.
And he's like always great in everything he's in. Just basically
Hmm.
playing himself. Um,
Yeah.
then we get the sweet miracle montage.
Yeah. I like that part.
Yeah, yeah.
Stoke.
It's like also haunting. Yeah, one thing I haven't really
Hmm.
like talked too much about is my dream film project that I cannot believe
Ah.
does not exist. But like it would basically be a horror anthology covering stories from the Old Testament
Hmm.
and like New Testament of like, just like how horrifying some of this shit is. Like
Hey man, some of those stories get fucking real.
no, there's some like if you actually apply that stuff
Yeah.
to reality instead of just like oh it's
Hmm.
a allegory and you actually take a literal interpretation of a world where like Old Testament God exists, it's
Hmm.
terrifying. And I'm like, where's my Old Testament movie? The closest to it I think that
Yep.
exists is the that movie Begotten that I don't know anyone should ever
Uh,
really watch.
yeah.
Like, but that is like the closest thing that I could find in my breezing around a letterbox and being like and just Google searching Bible horror movie and it's like the
Mhm.
Passion of Christ.
Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I hate when people are like, "Oh,
Torture,
the
it's
goriest
like Saw.
torture porn horror movie you ever seen."
But also in
We'll
this
get
film,
there.
we'll get there. We got Dancing Jesus, which I'm sure some people probably have a problem
Yeah.
with too, because I'm like Jesus dancing. Dancing
No,
Jesus. It's like that's like because
that's
that's like this is something
yeah.
that upsets people because like if you think about
Mhm.
like all the things you've ever seen in paintings in imagery,
Mhm.
you've never seen a dancing Jesus.
Yeah. See that's the thing too, where it's like when people take things very literally and they're like, he's supposed to be this divine like um this yeah exactly so anyways it's like he would be like that like because if he's like this guy who's like super into love and being with people and just kind of like loving your neighbor he would be dancing because that's what dudes who love their neighbors do.
Well, yeah. The Jesus gimmick is that he was
Yeah.
down with the poor and the cripples
Mhm.
and like the lepers. Like that was his whole thing.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's all.
Mhm.
I mean, there was a period of time, RJ, before the 20th century rolled around, where like Christianity was like really against capitalism because
Yeah.
the money lenders, like
Mm-hmm.
that whole chapter that just gets ignored
Chestnut.
conveniently by like many people. But there was a point, and then there came a point where Christianity was compromised by
Mm-hmm.
capitalism, and it became okay because that money will help the poor people, right? Just like Ronald Reagan
Yep.
said, with the
Mm-hmm.
trickle down effect.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying, dog?
I do.
Yeah. Anyway, there's also some great lines here, like the semen backs up into the brain.
Oh, I thought that one was really funny. I
Because
didn't know.
the guy that has it, like he's so Jewish too, and it's just like when they go
Yeah.
back to Nazareth, oh, it's like if I forgot about that, and then he's a magician.
Yeah,
Um,
I like his line where he says, "Make miracles or go away,"
yeah,
which I feel like is what people still do,
yeah.
or like still say about religions and things like that.
It's the tits or get the fuck out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, shit or get off the pot, Jer.
yeah.
That's what they say
Show
downtown.
show us your miracles, and we'll believe you.
Yeah,
It's a fair
yeah.
point. It's a
Hmm.
it's a Gnostic standpoint. It's Thomas
Yep.
style. See,
Show me your magic.
I know a little. Yeah, show me your beating heart out of your chest. Show me your resurrectedness, bro.
Uh huh. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got cripples, screaming robes horror at Lazarus's burial, the wailing
Yeah.
women, and it's like, oh, what the fuck is that? And
Yeah.
then poor Lazarus just can't catch a break. So
Yeah.
it's a horrifying thing because I always like everyone
Yeah.
remembers Lazarus rising from the grave, and we all remember the Lazarus pit from Ra's al Ghul fame, but no one
Uh-huh.
remembers how Lazarus gets got by old
Gets murked.
Saul. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Poor Lazarus, man. He was just starting to get his flesh back.
yeah, he's just
Yeah.
like, oh, light's nice. It's like, yeah, like there's that
Mhm.
whole concept of like coming back from the dead and being like not a zombie or just like I'm alive again, but I was dead and it was nice that way. But we
Mhm.
got to shut him down.
Yep.
We get the creepy Isaiah shot. Another like
Which
robed.
one?
That's when the it's like Isaiah spoke to me, and there's like the scene with Willem Dafoe with like the robed up prophet Isaiah, and they're just doing them.
Oh
It's
yeah.
like it's a flashback thing, but it's like
Mhm.
I was like. That's weird because usually you
Mhm.
don't get scenes like that in movies. Like you don't get
Mhm.
flashbacks to like, oh, here's the scene where he's talking to a 200-year-old prophet. And so I was like looking up Isaiah, and I'm like, yeah, there's like that's the only time he's ever been filmed in a movie. They've been like, there's been some weird like meddling around and like changing around stuff. Because like when you start getting
Mhm.
into like Bible history and stuff like that, and like timelines and like how stuff was altered over time to like make things fit, even though it's
Right.
like that revelation wouldn't come true for another 200 years, and it's supposed to happen right away. And
Mhm.
it's just like, yeah, it's fascinating stuff, especially if you start reading
Mhm.
the Dave Sim comic Cerebus when he starts dealing with Bible stuff and getting really
Ah.
into it, because that guy has nothing but time to like
Mhm.
get into it and like come up with his own interpretations of like the whole like timeline of like
Sure.
of Judaism through Christianity to Islam,
Mhm.
and it's all one big continuity.
Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. There's my
Mhm.
note here about a biblical horror movie that I'd love to see,
Mhm.
which reminded me. There's Chester Brown, the Canadian
Yeah.
cartoonist. He's got a little bit of a couple of Jesus and like Bible comics that he's made.
Hmm.
Back in the day, in his serialized comic Yummy Fur, he had a backup in it, which was like a comics interpretation of like I think it was the Gospel of. This is where I'm going to blank out. He did two. He never finished the second one, but it was like I think it was
Mhm.
Mark, and then he did Matthew. So the Mark one was done like in a very like kind of traditional sense, but it's like done in this very like flat, unaffected, no inflection of tone. It's just like here's a depiction of like what the writing is, and it's kind of like hilarious at times because he's just literally drawing what the Bible said.
Mhm.
And then but it's like a happy normal Jesus. But then when he started doing Matthew, it's like dark Jesus and angry Jesus,
Mhm.
and it's like way more like the idea of like he was a radical and like
Yeah.
he was like that idea of like he's a upriser and he wants to like fuck up
Like
the
in this
system.
movie.
Yeah, and so like that's like always stuck out to me. And he also has like
Mhm.
a whole book called Mary Wept Over the Feet of Jesus, which has like
Mhm.
stories from all across the Old Testament, New Testament stuff, and like it's all like just deadpan and creepy and weird in the best way
Mhm.
possible. So I highly recommend people check that out.
Sounds cool.
Yeah. What else? You can say some stuff too. I'm just running through
Oh,
my
I
notes.
just I was gonna say I like the what like what you were saying, that Jesus is a rebel with a cause in this one. He's a bad boy.
Yeah.
When he comes in, he's like, I am here to set fire to the world,
Mm-hmm.
to be baptized in fire. He's like, I'm going to tear this thing down. And when he walks into the temple, he's just like knocking over tables. He's like, fuck you. It's like, that's a badass Jesus that everyone's been waiting for.
Well, see, there's a big jump there though, because when he comes back from the desert and he's got the axe,
Yep.
then he goes back. It goes to the montage of him helping out people, not doing anything particularly violent.
Yeah.
So, which I think has a lot to do with sort of the source material, not the actual like novel this is based on, but the actual gospel stuff.
Yep.
Where it's
that's when he goes in there and he sees there's like markets and like brothels and all that shit, and he's just like, what the fuck? He's like, I'm gonna bring this place to the ground.
Yeah. And then we get there's like a really wonderful bit where we get a description of what a crucified man looks like after 2 days on the cross. Like, he doesn't have eyes, and the dogs have eaten the feet, and it's just like, oh yeah. Like, I don't think people, when you see like little trinkets that the religious world make of Jesus, you really lose sight of like how horrifying crucifixion is.
You spend some time in a church, man, with that stained glass. They don't let you forget how horrifying it is, but the little crucifixes and crosses that you wear, it does kind of downplay it a little bit.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. It's
neat. Go to the actual churches themselves, and some of them are super upfront with how grisly and horrific.
Yeah.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of those all those old sculptors and artists that would like do, like I was saying, like stained glass and paintings and the sculptures. Like the church here, that the school I was at, we would go to the church there, and they have like the grisliest, like super emaciated Jesus on the cross, and there's like blood coming out, and he's like crying. He's like, ooh, and you're like, that's what's up. That's what's at the very top of like the room where everyone's facing, and you just have to stare at that like all day, and you're just like, oh man. So they don't let you forget, but the crucifixes and the crosses that you get for wearing and such, it downplays a little bit.
It's a real great death cult.
Yeah. The best, some would say.
One of many death cults. Actually, one thing I'll maybe mention too is it's actually a fitting coincidence, I think, that I'm reading right now a book on martyrs, like on just on saints and whatnot, and because I find that like it's that post-Christian, like still in the early 300s, that era is quite terrifying, and like finding like all the horrifying ways that Romans found of like just crucifying human beings and doing things to people. It's just like, holy shit, this is just incredible. The way the heights that people will do things to human bodies, and that's what a lot of technology grows out of, unfortunately. Is like, hey, if we can do this if we can do this to a human body, maybe we can do this for good. It's like, oh, terrific. Anyway, so then we get that description, and then we get the beating the naked Willem Dafoe. So they don't linger too long. They got a stunt double in there to do like those shots, because you can see there's just a man with a wig on to do the passion part of the story. Yeah. And I just refer to this as the scene, the walk of shame, whatever it is called again. I know it's got an actual name, but there's the Victor Argo. When he's like, when it's Paul getting like called out, he's like, hey, he's one of his followers, and he denies him. That whole sequence. Yeah. His run is so funny.
Yeah, it's
like the fake guy run, like I'm not really being chased, but I'm pretending to run. I thought that was it kind of took me out there for a second, so thanks, Victor Argo. And then the fucking title of the movie of when Jesus is up on the cross, and we get the what if sequence. So that was good. And then the beginning of the Last Testament scene, we get the sliding the nails out of the holes.
Ooh, yeah.
It's like, oh, that's lovely. And then we get I guess like actually early on in the movie, we got like the initial crucifixion that he's helping out with, and he's kind of doing his pain thing that people like Christians do, flailing. But you got the pain, you get the pain belt.
The self-flagellation.
Yeah. But there's like whatever. There's again, there's Catholic words for these things very
Yes.
specifically. Anyway, yeah, the exploration of Jesus' duality, his human impulses, his sensible doubt of the voices in his head that any sane person would have doubts about, despite being a demigod. And then, then there's the controversy of this movie. So, are you familiar with like what happened when this movie was released, RJ?
I can imagine. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me read through here. The film opened on August 12th, 1988. The film was later screened as part of the Venice International Film Festival on September 7th. In response to the film's acceptance as a part of the film festival's lineup, director Franco Zeffirelli removed his film, Young Toscanini, from the program. So he's probably a good Italian Catholic boy who had a problem with this movie even being considered. So here's a headline. Attack on St. Michael Theater, Paris. On October 22nd, 1988, an integrist Catholic group set fire to the Parisian St. Michael Theater while it was showing the film. A little after midnight, an incendiary device ignited under a seat in the less supervised underground room where a different film was being shown. The incendiary device consisted of a charge of potassium chlorate triggered by a vial containing sulfuric acid. The attack injured 13 people, 4 of whom were severely burned. The St. Michael Theater was heavily damaged and reopened 3 years later after restoration. The Archbishop of Paris had previously condemned the film without having seen it, but also condemned the attack, calling the perpetrators enemies of Christ. The attack was subsequently blamed on a Christian fundamentalist group linked to Bernard Antony, a representative of the far-right Front National to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, and the excommunicated followers of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre. Similar attacks against theaters included graffiti, setting off tear gas canisters and stink bombs, and assaulting filmgoers. At least 9 people believed to be members of the Christian fundamentalist group were arrested. 5 militants of a group called General Alliance Against Racism and for Respect of the French and Christian Identity were given suspended prison sentences of between 15 and 36 months, as well as 450,000 franc fine for damages. René Ramond, a historian, said of the Christian far right, "It is the toughest component of the National Front and is motivated more by religion than by politics. It is a coherent political philosophy that has not changed for 200 years. It is the rejection of the revolution, of the republic, and of modernism." So who says that there's only radical Islamists that will like hurt a bunch of people to get their point across?
I think that there in any group there are people who ruin it for everyone else.
Yep.
And that's just how it goes.
So, okay. To get down to the controversy of this film, The Last Temptation of Christ, eponymous final sequence depicts the crucified Jesus tempted by what turns out to be Satan in the form of a beautiful child, experiencing a dream or alternative reality where he comes down from the cross, marries Magdalene and Mary and Martha, and lives out his life as a full mortal man. He learns on his deathbed that he was deceived by Satan and begs God to let him be God's son, at which point he finds himself once again on the cross. At other points in the film, Jesus is depicted as building crosses for the Romans, being tormented by the voice of God, and lamenting the many sins he believes he has committed. Because of these departures from the gospel narratives, and especially a brief scene wherein Jesus and Mary Magdalene consummate their marriage, which I guess some people would be very upset by that ever happening in any way, but nonetheless, several Christian groups organized vocal protests and boycotts of the film prior to and upon its release. One protest, organized by a religious Californian radio station, gathered 600 protesters to picket the headquarters of Universal Studios' then parent company, MCA. One of the protesters dressed up as MCA's chairman, Lou Wasserman, and pretended to drive nails through Jesus' hand into a wooden cross.
Jesus.
Evangelist Bill Bright offered to buy the film's negative from Universal in order to destroy it. The protests were effective in convincing several theater chains not to screen the film. One of those chains, General Cinema, later apologized to Scorsese for doing so. Mother Angelica, a Catholic nun and founder of the Eternal World Television Network, described Last Temptation as the most blasphemous ridicule of the Eucharist that's ever been perpetrated in this world, and a Holocaust movie that has the power to destroy souls eternally. Hence, RJ, me being like, really? They let you watch this in Catholic school? In some countries,
I'm pretty sure, man.
In some countries, including Greece, Turkey, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina, the film was banned or censored for several years. As of July 2010, the film continues to be banned in the Philippines and Singapore.
Yeah, like, I get it. Like, I see why people would be mad about it and all that. But, like, I'm pretty sure I watched this in school, and because it was what, like 30 years or 20 years later or so, maybe. I don't know. When did this come out? 86, you said?
88.
All right, so it would have only been maybe like 15 years later or so.
Sure.
But no, I watched this in school.
Hmm.
It's like I said, like some places are a lot more rigid in their strictness, but I don't know. I guess maybe where I went to school, they were just cool with it. They're like, yeah, check this shit out.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's that. So there's one thing that popped into my mind while I was watching the movie too, like during the Last Temptation scene, is like I was thinking about Henry Hill in Goodfellas in his like life after being a gangster.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to read this. See, the hardest thing for me was leaving the life. I still love the life, and we were treated like movie stars with muscle. We had it all. Just for the asking. Our wives, mothers, kids, everybody rode along. I had paper bags filled with jewelry stashed in the kitchen. I had a sugar bowl full of Coke next to the bed. Anything I wanted was a phone call away. Free cars, the keys to a dozen hideout flats all over the city. I'd bet 20, 30 grand over a weekend, and then I'd either blow the winnings in a week or go to the Sharks to pay back the bookies. Didn't matter. It didn't mean anything. When I was broke, I would go out and rob some more. We ran everything. We paid off cops. We paid off lawyers. We paid off judges. Everybody had their hands out. Everything was for the taking. And now it's all over. And that's the hardest part. Today, everything's different. There's no action. I have to wait around like everyone else. Can't even get decent food. Right after I got here, I ordered some spaghetti with marinara sauce, and I got egg noodles and ketchup. I'm an average nobody. I get to live the rest of my life like a schnook. And that's like the story of Jesus here in the Last Temptation.
Yeah.
He gets to live. He gets to be a schnook like the rest of us.
Schnook. Yeah, pretty close, I guess. Hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that is an astute grab on your part.
It just like popped. Well, so then it was like, oh, maybe I should rewatch all of Marty's movies because it's been a while.
You should have.
And watch all 20. Well, the 24 that I've watched, and there's about 2 or 3 I haven't seen of his like feature films, and then there's his like documentaries that I don't care so much about, like his Bob
the Rolling
Dylan.
Stones ones.
Yeah, give me well, just the one Rolling Stone one and his Bob Dylan one. I should see them. Because I like both. I like them both, but it's just like I haven't got around to it. But yeah, I think like Jesus getting mind gamed by the best player of the game there is, the devil. I think that's like pretty good. It's like like that's the devil. He. And the movie Silence basically has the same weird, resigned finality of the Last Temptation sequence. Only it's real in silence. Yeah. So Silence is great too. People should watch that movie. I feel like people are always in the rush to like talk about the next big thing, and they forget about really good movies that pass. Like, especially dramas. Dramas kind of fall because they're not like boom, wow, whizzy. Like they're not like it's the same level of excitement as saying like, oh man, I think Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the best movies of the last 10 years. It's like it isn't. Like you should like fucking read a book, get out there, do something with your life. Quit bothering everybody.
Buy a horse, move to the mountains, stop bothering everyone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, you should still engage in culture. Don't be a dropout. I mean, you could still contribute, but you get the same idea. Stop bothering everybody with your
I
ignorance.
understand.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about this experience? Does it reaffirm your commitment to Christ?
You know what, man? This is gonna sound lame, but watching this and then Passion, I was like, yeah. I was like, this is what they trained me for all those years in Catholic school.
So you can go on that crusade.
Yeah, go on that crusade, and then years later come back and be like, you know what? You guys were right.
Yeah. So do you want to do Who Hates, or do you want to do the Passion?
I'll just talk about Passion real quick.
Go for it.
So just because it'll be nice, it'll be a little comparison. Because I don't know if you know this, but there's a lot of overlap. Because a lot of these Jesus' movies cover the same material.
Are you saying that they hit the same plot beats?
A little bit. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't... Like, I like seeing different interpretations of it. As I said, it's the greatest story ever told. Mm-hmm. So, no, I haven't seen Passion in probably like 10 years. Whenever it came out, which I think was like 2004 or something like that.
You're right.
It's been a long time since I've seen it. And, no, I like the Passion, man. I think... obviously I like all of Mel Gibson's stuff. There's a few things that are a little weird. This movie might be what you would call non-anamorphic. I still don't know what that means, but watching it was a little weird. Like the way the way things looked themselves was a little bit weird. I don't know if it was like the cameras that were used or what was going on, but it just didn't look super great. There's a few slow motion scenes, which sometimes it works pretty good. Sometimes it's like, it's a little much. But on the whole, like I like this. I like this story too because I think this really kind of some of the other ones shy away from how shitty it would be to be brutalized and fucking nailed to a cross, and that is 100% what this movie is. It's just like I mean, obviously, but Mel Gibson's like, hey, you guys know that this was really horrible, right? And like, even if you don't like I think it's through historical documents, it's been shown that like Jesus was a guy. But say you even didn't believe in Jesus, they did crucify people.
Oh yeah,
like a lot. So even if you don't like buy into all that aspect, just watching it as say like just to see what it would be like for any of those like thousands of people who were crucified, you would just be like, holy shit. And it's really effective too. Like I didn't realize this when I was watching it, but when they go to the torture scene before he gets crucified, like the punishment scene, they drop all the subtitles. So you like all the Roman guards are still talking, but there's no subtitles. And I thought that was like a really interesting choice because there's nothing to draw you away from what's happening. Like he forces you to watch it basically. And he doesn't like do it like the scenes they're very explicit and they show everything, but like he doesn't like linger there too long. Like he does cut away a lot to Mary and the reaction of the people watching and stuff like that. So I just thought it was interesting how like, because the whole movie's in like Hebrew or whatever language they spoke.
Yeah.
And then for that scene, there's just no subtitles at all. And I was like, oh, interesting. But then there's a lot of scenes that do overlap with Last Temptation. Like you get the Last Supper scene. You get the praying scene, like before he gets captured. You see a lot of Judas stuff. You see him talking to Pontius Pilate. You see like the trial, and then Temptation has a little bit of that torture stuff, or like they just like hit him with a whip for a couple minutes in Last Temptation. That's about it.
You don't really see the trial in.
No, he just talks. He just talks to Pontius Pilate for a little bit.
But that's not because the trial that you see in Passion is with the because it's like really giving it to the Jews.
The Jews, yeah, exactly. Because that's the one thing in Passion is Pontius Pilate is just like, hey, I don't really want to do this. I don't think this guy, he's like, I think this guy's crazy, but I don't think he did anything wrong. And the Jews are like, crucify him. And then he's like, I don't want to.
Are you sure?
Yeah, there's like 20 minutes. It's like, wouldn't you rather choice B? And then it's like, just all the like the Hermetic, like really Orthodox Jews are like, no, get him. So yeah, he really plays that up a lot. But no, man, like I do like Passion. I think over everything else, if you're not religious, that doesn't matter. If you are a different religion, that doesn't matter either. I think at the heart of it, which is like to a big broad statement of every religion, even atheism, just being a good person. At the heart of it, it's just like what like the ideas he had and stuff like that. It's just really common sense stuff. It's like, hey, you should just be nice to people. And then it's like the idea that someone who was trying to say that and like trying to do the right thing was fucking like brutalized and murdered for it. It's sad, and it's supposed to be sad. You should feel bad for it, but not because of religious guilt or anything like that. It's just like, yeah, that really sucks.
So, well, two things on that. So, yeah, like this idea that like, hey, some of these ideas are pretty useful. They're pretty good. Yeah. It's like, so I mean, that goes back to the like Life of Brian thing, where like Life of Brian is exactly that. Where it's like, hey, like. Just do good things, be nice to people. And it's like, what do you mean by that? It's like, what sort of obstinate asshole would have an issue with a lot of this? But But yeah, so there's that aspect. But then there was actually another, because I only read comics because I can't read books. Alan Moore's Promethea. There's like the one issue when the characters are kind of going down the Kabbalah, and they hit like kind of the God, the golden sphere, like kind of the sun sphere, which is like kind of where wisdom and like the sun god comes from, and like this whole idea of just like this the reemerging concept of like sun gods, and like Jesus is basically derivative as a story of this sun god, and that like it doesn't matter if there was literally a Jesus, or because there's like all these other stories of this character who like dies every day and comes back, and this idea is imparting love or wisdom to people, and regardless of this death, they come back the next day. That's sort of this core idea, but like this idea too of like, God, like the actual God has sent his son as a ambassador to Earth to like show his will, and humanity rewarded that by nailing him to a cross. And it's like, Jesus, it's like, what does that what does that say about fucking humans? Because that's the thing, is like always like the idea of like, well, if Jesus showed up this day, would he get the same treatment? And by going on Twitter, you would go, yes, they would, because people suck, and that's sort of the ongoing thing. There's no curing stupid, and there's no curing people, unfortunately. Even though there's a lot of really well-meaning good people out there, somehow there's people who they've gone astray. RJ,
that's what I was saying before. In any group, no matter what it is, it could be a religion, it could be a fucking group of dudes who go play darts like after work. There's going to be one or two people who ruin it for everyone. You know that one uncle who gets too drunk at like family reunions, and then everyone gets uncomfortable. That's like the people from those extremist groups, and you're just like, oh man. But yeah, no, that's kind of the way I feel about it. I was going to say one last thing about Passion. I had so I watched it last night, and I had crazy fucking nightmares last night. I'm not even kidding. I woke up, I was pouring sweat, and I don't remember what they were now, but I do remember that it was Jesus was involved, I think, because the thing with Passion too, like, I mean, again, obviously watching those scenes, they're fucking brutal, man. Like, you're watching and you're just like, oh my God, when he's getting like skin torn off of his fucking torso for like 15 minutes, you're like, oh, good Lord. Yeah, I had crazy, vivid nightmares last night. I don't remember what they were on, but I was going to... Ooh, shit. I just remembered something totally unrelated, but I wanted to bring it up. So you know how you were talking about how... so our news was about Toby Hooper dying?
Yeah.
Do you remember last week when we went to SummerSlam and I told you about the dream I had? And I'm not kidding. Jarrett's response, I told him this dream I had the night before, and his response was, nah, that's made up. He's like, no, you didn't have a dream like that. Do you remember my dream now?
Yeah, well, I remember Toby, your mutant son who lives in the sewers, and he was defending you and defending Papa, and it's like, okay, you're just lying. You're just like, this is not how dreams work.
It's in my dream journal.
And now Toby Hooper's dead, so I don't know. I guess you killed him too in your dreams.
In my dreams, yeah. It's in my dream journal. I woke up in the middle of the night and wrote it down. I had a mutant son with a hunchback, and he came out of the sewers when it was raining. And I tried to kill him at one point, I think. But then he saved me from a mugger, and he was going, Papa. And I was like, no, Toby, get away. Back into the sewers.
So,
yeah.
So my experience with Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson's film, is I watched like about the first half or so, like quite a bit into it, and then the DVD just fucked up. It just like it was like because I was waiting to watch it previously viewed from Blockbuster, and it came out, and I went and got a copy, and I was like, I'm gonna watch this thing, and I remember like halfway through, it just like started screwing up, and I was like, fuck this, and then like I started just skipping around, and then it was like sometime later that I learned about this, like the Antichrist shows up in the movie, and I was like, what? When does that happen? And then I saw that scene. And that's still one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Like, it's so misguided and like just
it doesn't seem too. So there is a build up to that. It's not out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So when Judas is like running around feeling guilt, he like little kids are like bullying him, and they have those like old man faces.
Yeah.
So he builds it up into it.
And then the Antichrist turns and smiles.
Mm.
That was my MSN Messenger pick for a very long time. You can
I'm
ask
sure
you can
it
ask all
was.
my friends, and then
Yeah.
I love it.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's all I really can say about that movie because I've never watched it
Yeah.
at all because
Huh.
God didn't want me to watch it. I
Well,
guess
this was the week you could have did it. I have 2 copies of that fucking thing on DVD. I would have lent you one.
non-anamorphic. Boo.
Yeah, I don't. I still don't know what that means, but I
I'll,
think
I'll,
it was.
I'll go get the really blue looking Blu-ray of it. Have you seen the
Oh, okay.
case of that? It's like just blue. It's the strangest thing. Because like actually
That movie's. It starts out the first 10 minutes are super blue.
that movie was totally marketed though as like
Yeah,
as a torture porn slasher movie from that era though. Like
I guess. Yeah.
I did a blog post about it way
Mm-hmm.
back when blogs were a thing, and like it had the same like dark bloody brown canvas look
Yeah.
that like Texas Chainsaw Massacre had. Hills Have Eyes remake, they all had the same poster art style. I'm like, what the fuck?
Sure.
It's like it is totally intentional. Like
Mm-hmm.
it was a horror movie. So Mel Gibson's part of the Splat Pack of the era, making Apocalypto and that.
Mm-hmm.
He was tapped in to
He's
raw animal violence.
a fallen son, man.
I
He's a
don't.
hell of a guy.
It's too bad he doesn't get to make because I know at one point he was going to make his Maccabees movie,
Mhm.
and then that didn't happen because the incident occurred,
Yeah.
the incidents I guess, and then
Yeah.
what else? And then yeah, he was going to make some other movie like
He, since he's been back, he's saying he's gonna make a follow up to The Passion.
yeah, oh yeah,
Which,
sequel right?
yeah, I think he was saying it was gonna be like a purgatory type deal, which sounds awesome. I would watch the fuck out of that.
Hopefully, it's just about Mel Gibson in Hollywood being a conservative and liberal Hollywood.
Yeah. Why won't anyone answer my calls?
Yeah, and he'll be like, it'll be violent too, and really intense. And
Yeah.
the Antichrist will be like a Hollywood producer at Warner Brothers or something.
With a huge nose.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be like the most anti-Semitic film yet.
Nice. I can't wait.
Anyway, you heard it here first, folks. So who hates Last Temptation of Christ?
I'm sure quite a few.
Varghese Iman gave this movie half a star.
Mhm.
Blasphemous garbage. The worst movie of Scorsese's career. A devout Catholic made this.
Come on. Don't be that guy.
Nald gave it 1 star, and in brackets, because it's like a thesis paper: identity, sex, violence, mysticism, spirituality, religion. And then the hubris and tone deafness required to create this film is mind-blowing. Let's see. White leads playing Arab and Jewish people. Check. Non-white cast exoticized and dehumanized in ornamental roles. Check. Strength of narrative relies on audience's preconceptions. Check. Hilariously Americanized dialogue and orientalized score. Check.
Come on, guys.
Yeah.
You don't have to do that.
Yeah. I'm sorry that an American movie was made with American actors.
Hey, you know what?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, like
yeah. It's just goes like what? No one talks about this about other countries. It's just anyway.
that stuff's such a small thing though too. It's like who fucking cares?
Yeah, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't like and like
Yeah.
I remember like years ago when I watched the movie, I thought like sort of like the exoticized people like were kind of like weird and kind of spooky, but like I don't know, it's just like the culture of the time. It's alien too. Like you can't like you. It's like hard to imagine. It's like man, society has really changed a lot in 2,000 years. Like the world was really different and kind of odd, and like I'm sure the film actually did its research quite well to make things look accurate. Or like if it, or if it's shorthand, then it just adds to like sort of the otherworldliness of traveling back in time in making a movie about a divine entity. Like not a big deal. Brendan, last one here, 1 star. Tedious, slow, and dull. Not 3 words that came to my mind. In fact, when I checked the time code on this movie, it was like 1:40. Just because, like, and that's usually one of those cases where I'm like, oh, how much longer is in this movie? And I was like, okay, cool, because Martin Scorsese is such a great filmmaker. His movies just slide on by. Because usually there's times where I check and I'm like, oh, it's been 40 minutes. This is like, oh, it's been an hour and 40 minutes. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So, tedious, slow, and dull. The film looks and sounds like a made-for-TV film. The dialogue is wooden and lazy, and the acting isn't of a good enough standard. It's a controversial film, however, through it in its controversy. And
Nice.
people have forgotten to
one.
ask the question, is it any good? And the answer is an emphatic no. It's just terrible, preachy, overwhelming with no substance.
Preachy.
I'm not passionately for or against religion, but I am passionately against this film. There's always that
hate
guy,
things
I know. There's always that guy who's got to say something. This film. Because everyone wants to be Leonard Maltin.
I hate that. It's so dumb.
It's like my favorite. His Leonard Maltin's review of Silence was like, "Silence is golden." It's like
you got him, man.
Shut the fuck up, Maltin.
Yeah,
Maltin.
Jeez.
Anyway, yeah, I don't know. It's incredible to me that this film continues to offend. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people suck.
Yeah, but
that's about it.
Yeah,
some people suck.
Some people are assholes.
Yeah.
I don't know. Any other thoughts?
No, I like this movie, man. I think we did a good job tonight.
Yeah.
We covered a broad spectrum.
We covered that spectrum.
We covered the spectrum.
After the break, RJ and I will be tricked by the devil, and we'll live our lives out as we are living them out right now, and die at an old age as Jerusalem burns.